This is not, however, our only piece of secondary source scholarship to help us to understand bin Laden and Al Qaeda. Because we also have an article by Michael Doran, which was published in Political Science Quarterly in 2002, titled The Pragmatic Fanaticism of Al Qaeda, An Anatomy and Extremism, Middle Eastern Politics. Again, please read this article. It is important, it is interesting, and it includes information that you just don't find in the mainstream media, which tends to oversimplify complex situations such as Al Qaeda. Michael Doran quotes from the Al Qaeda field manual, if you will, to give insight into the organization. The beginning of the field manual, the guerrilla manual, whatever we want to call it, we find this statement. This statement tells us a great deal about Al Qaeda's motivations. After the fall of our Orthodox caliphates on March 3rd, 1924, on March 3rd, 1924, Ataturk, the president of Turkey following World War I and the great westernizer, modernizer, and reformer that took a decrepit Ottoman Empire and turned it into the modern Republic of Turkey, a modern secular republic. In doing so, he abolished the 1,300-year-old line of caliphs that stretched back to Abu Bakr in 632. So, after the fall of our caliphates on March 3rd, 1924, and after expelling the European colonialists, something that happens after World War II in large measure, we've already talked about to a certain extent, Iran, for example, in Egypt with Gamal Abdel Nasser in the early 1950s. After expelling the European colonialists, our Islamic nation was afflicted with apostate rulers who took over. These rulers turned out to be more infidel and criminal than the colonialists themselves. Muslims have endured all kinds of harm, oppression, and torture at their hands. He is referring here to Anwar Sadat and his successor, Hosni Mubarak, in Egypt. Anwar Sadat, of course, the man who first recognized the State of Israel in 1978 in the Camp David Accords. Hosni Mubarak, his successor, who is still president on the quote-unquote throne of Egypt. He's referring to the Saudi royal family. He's referring to Saddam Hussein. This is a point that I cannot emphasize enough. Saddam Hussein, in the opinion of an Osama bin Laden and an Al Qaeda, is worse than an American. Think about that for a second. We're bad, but we're not Muslims, so we can be excused a certain amount of our transgressions. But Muslim on Muslim crime in Osama bin Laden's book is far worse than Europeans or Americans putting Muslims under their thumbs, as had been the case much of the first half of the 20th century. Saudi royal family is despised by Osama bin Laden. He's been expelled from the kingdom, not allowed to return, despite the fact that his father founded one of the most important companies in the country. A Muslim apostate, someone who has turned their back on their religion, is worse than the European colonialists. Therefore, the notion that Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein were working together is beyond preposterous. I can't actually think of a powerful enough analogy in our own world to describe just how improbable that set of circumstances would be. It'd be like a Cowboys fan giving aid and comfort to a Giants fan, a Yankees fan helping a Red Sox fan. But that doesn't even begin to describe the animosity which Osama bin Laden holds for people like Saddam Hussein, the Shah of Iran, the Saudi royal family, Hosni Mubarak, King Hussein in Jordan, the second Arab ruler, and thus far the last Arab ruler to recognize Israel in 1994. If I want you to come away from these lectures with one thing, it's that the notion of a link between Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden is farcical, laughable, not to mention impossible. Got that? Good. It's not all that Michael Doran provides us with. He also provides us with the term Jahiliyyah, Dark Age. This is what Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda refer to this present age as, since 1924, as the Jahiliyyah, the Dark Age. And their goal is to refound the caliphate, to remove apostate Muslim rulers from their positions of power, and to restore what they believe was a more Muslim way of life before westernizing ideas infiltrated the region in the 20th century. The Jahiliyyah, the Dark Age in which we currently inhabit, according to Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda. He also provides us with a statement by Osama bin Laden in November 2001, several months after the attacks on 9/11. In this statement, Osama bin Laden says, in the wake of the great strikes that hit the United States in its most important locations, in New York and Washington, a huge media clamor has been raised. People were divided into two parts. The first part supported these strikes against U.S. tyranny, while the second denounced them. Recall that President Khatami and Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei in Iran were quick to denounce these terrorist attacks. In the streets of Iran in the days after 9/11, we saw thousands marching, chanting, "Marg bar terrorist," death to terrorists. Much as we hear in the streets of Iran today, "Marg bar dictator," death to the dictator, in this case, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda see the world in very black and white terms. You are with them or you are against them. There is no middle ground. Being a Muslim does not mean automatically that you are with them, because they divide Muslims into two groups: apostates and true believers. True believers, of course, what they consider themselves to be. Apostates are people like Saddam Hussein and Hosni Mubarak and the Saudi royal family. Jahiliyyah, Dark Age. It's what they are seeking to bring an end to by restoring the caliphate.